Enjoy the show. Play on Mattcast.
Welcome, one and all, to another Mattcast. Man, did you see that new intro? Oh, yeah. Pulling from the old OG Mattman logo that I always... I wear this shirt every once in a while. My original Mattman logo shirt where you see it's a city at the bottom. A little bit of spackle on it because of life. Spackle from when we were fixing this house. So, got the new logo playing with, cleaning up old images. And I got that OG Mattman logo back. So, I'm going to run with that one for the intro. And I'll sprinkle some different ones in between the stories. Show you some of the cool stuff I've been working on that way. Spice the show up. But we'll kick it off like I usually do. What have I been watching? What's on my Crunchyroll? Netflix and stuff wise, not really much popping up there. I mean, there were some, stand-up specials and stuff that pop up there every once in a while, but nothing too interesting that I've saw. Demons of the Shadow Realm still looking good. The one that's about to end is Dr. Stone. That one, I think the last episode from what I saw is next week. So this week of recording. So I have the review on that one, I'm sure, because that's a series wrap on that. A lot of different stuff. Snowball Earth has been one that's really kind of stuck out in my mind. It's really an interesting premise. Let's see if they, have the legs to keep going with it. I mean, you're at the episode 11, 12, end of the season stretch here before you get into the new season and stuff. So we're about to hit that lull, Some of them are still, a bit back, like, reincarnated as a vending machine. My boy Boxo, that anime is so fantastic. I love it. But different stuff popping up in the future. We got Lanterns in Lanterns, I think, in August. You got Spider-Man coming up as well, the brand new day. So a lot of different stuff popping up there. A lot of different kind of news with that. But there's one thing that popped up in the news that I don't think anybody's really surprised with, but we'll find out in this first story. Doctor Who has been canceled. And Russell T. Davies has exited the series. So who, see what I did there? Who didn't see this one coming? But the BBC announced that Doctor Who has officially been canceled. And the show's planned Christmas special starring Billie Piper will no longer happen. Russell T. Davies and Bad Wolf Production Company have also exited the series. And I saw one Mr. Russell T. Davies actually, Russell T. Davies came out saying that he didn't even have a script written. There was no doctor picked. It was going to be a one-off. BBC didn't want to do a one-off. They wanted something with more staying power. So that's where we're at right now. BBC looking at other people to produce the show because they had writer, production company, all exit. I think a lot of fans really were kind of getting tired of Doctor Who. So it's about the time for the Doctor to just disappear into the ether for a bit, in my opinion, because... And that's not, to say that anything that Russell would have came up with wouldn't have felt Doctor Who. That's not the problem. I think a lot of people had problem with the overt wokeism that Doctor Who and Star Wars both collectively really just kind of hit that over the head. That it's, Doctor Who and Star Wars, they both leaned into the wokeism and both fan bases pushed back. So now with Doctor Who, there's not a lot of substance. That's what the problem with Whovians, I think, are having with it. I agree with the one statement I saw in a comment online saying that it took a nosedive after Matt Smith. I enjoyed Peter Capaldi. But, then again, after that, I'd agree with the nosedive. It's not really something that I would say is at the forefront of my mind is another Doctor Who season. So give it some time to sit, reset, come back in like you did in 2005 with Christopher Eccleston. New Doctor, who dis, just mention something on the face, keep it moving with the script. Reboot it entirely. And bring it back to more of that traditional, like, '05 Doctor Who. You know, I hate to say traditional like that, but it's been over 20 years. You know, I mean, the '05 Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston, I think there was one episode in that first season where people didn't die. And it was the creepiest fucking episode ever. It was the Are You My Mummy episode. So that's where I'd say you gotta really focus on what brought people to Doctor Who before you keep going off on, you know, that tangent. But while we're on a tangent, we might as well hop in our TARDIS for this next story. A prehistoric cave, sealed for hundreds of thousands of years, just went uncovered near Haifa. Yeah, that's probably it. Haifa. Yeah, Haifa. There's an I in there. There we go. For hundreds of thousands of years, no one entered. Then scientists broke through. A prehistoric cave sealed for hundreds of thousands of years has been uncovered near Haifa, Israel. The cave was discovered during a road construction work. When researchers entered, they found stone tools, animal bones, and evidence of human activity preserved exactly as it was left. No looters, no weather, no disturbance, just silence and time. So the cave dates back to the Middle Pleistocene, roughly 200,000 to 500,000 years ago. That means it was sealed before Neanderthals spread across Europe. Homo sapiens left Africa before the last several ice ages came and went. Whoever lived there or used this cave left behind a snapshot of a world that no longer exists. The find include flint tools, characteristically of Archean culture. I butchered that. Associated with Homo erectus and early Homo sapiens. Animal bones include extinct species like the straight-tusked elephant and fallow deer. Some bones show cut marks, evidence of butchery. The cave may have been used as a hunting shelter or temporary camp. The cave was sealed by a collapse of the entrance, possibly caused by an earthquake or natural erosion. The collapse preserved the interior exactly as it was. No wind, no rain, no animals, just dark, silent room waiting for somebody to uncover it 200,000 years in the future. So, fascinating. Homo erectus, or early Homo sapiens, just coming out of Africa, and you're right there in that spot in Israel. You have this cave, nice little hunting ground. Stop here real quick, but maybe a earthquake or natural erosion covers it up. That kind of early human, they're on the move anyway. So it's not like it was a encampment or a early civilization. This is just a pit stop on the way. But just because, a certain rock rolled down the certain way, it got preserved, and we are finding it now. Nice stone tools and different evidence of butchery kind of puts the proof in the pudding as to, yep, this is how we know this is the flight pattern of the early, Homo species out of Africa, because they have spots like this where they could say, yep, they were right there. A lot like you're going to be right there. The bodies are certainly hitting the floor with this one, because a biotech company is keeping bodiless human brains alive in a lab. Yeah, the reason? A company says they want to pave the way for an animal-free era of neurological drug testing. I mean, that's one way to do it. Spun out of Yale University. In case you thought this is like some backwater university doing this. Nah, it's just Yale. Biotechnology. We'll try that one again. Biotechnology startup, Berksorg. Yeah, Bexorg. It's probably Bexorg. is challenging traditional drug testing boundaries by placing donated human brains into an artificial life support system called BrainX. God. Oh, man. It's too corporate. You know what I mean? BrainX, FedEx. It just sounds like you're about to just, ship yourself away. But shortly after a donor's death, the company connects the bodiless organ to pumps that circulate an oxygen-rich, nutrient-dense blood substitute to restore cellular metabolic activity. To address the immediate ethical concerns surrounding consciousness, Bexorg keeps these brains under deep anesthesia using propofol, ensuring there is no organized neural firing or awareness. Oh my God, is that goddamn terrifying. And the organ remains active for just 24 hours, providing researchers with a critical window for testing drugs and for diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's on actual human tissue before being dissected for detailed analysis. This whole organ technology is part of a broader high-stakes shift towards replacing flawed animal models, which contribute to a staggering failure rate in central nervous system drug trials. Other forward-looking companies are pursuing alternative biological avenues. Tessera Therapeutics is growing thousands of miniature human stem cell derived mini brains, while Corodical Labs is engineering a platform that embeds living neurons into silicone chips. Even more radically, startups like R3 Bio are exploring genetically engineered brainless human bodies to serve as a whole body mechanical model. Together, these groundbreaking platforms could significantly accelerate the development of life-saving therapeutics while moving medicine beyond the ethical and biological limitations of animal testing. Wow. What the hell? Anybody else see the horror movie in that as I'm reading it? Like, you just, as the person... So, yeah, it was shortly after the donor's death. So you die. Your brain then gets put under propofol in a little life support system, and then they just test drugs on you and dissect your brain once they're done with you. There's something so scientific about it, but also so very, very creepy. Like, hey, you using that brain anymore? Well, I'm going to take this. You got fake blood to pump in there, the oxygen-rich environment for the brain to just chill in. Wow. I mean, it's right out of like a sci-fi movie villain. It's so wild, but then exploring genetically engineered brainless human bodies. I'm sorry, are you making cyborgs? R3? Is that what you're making over there? Are you guys making cyborgs? Just taking brains and putting it into bodies? Oh, good Lord. You guys will do anything but test on animals nowadays, won't you? Whew. I mean, is it really that bad if we're growing and taking dead brains, keeping them alive, to where there's a very big ethical question in my mind of like, okay, well, how do we know that the consciousness is not there? And you're not just trapping that son of a bitch in that brain while you test and do weird shit to it. You know, even if you're under anesthesia, there's a big ethical question there. You know what I mean? Whew. And really creepy if I got to be honest. I mean, the bodies are not hitting the floor, but they'll definitely be hitting the ethics board, if you know what I mean. But let's see what happened in the past with this next story. Approximately 10% of ancient stone tools show design features intended for left-handed users. This finding suggests that the proportion of left-handed people in the population has remained stable, around 10% for the past 10,000 years. So 10% of ancient tools were made for left-handed people, the same percentage of people that are left-handed today. Archaeologists studied tools from multiple ancient sites across Europe and Asia. The wear patterns on the tools showed which hand the user had held them with. Oh, that makes sense. 10% of the tools had been used by left-handed people. The same 10% appeared at every site and in every time period. Wow, that's pretty fucking consistent, isn't it? The consistency suggests that left-handedness is not a modern trend or a cultural preference. The trait is genetic and has been stable in human population for thousands of years. Ancient tool makers did not try to force left-handed people to use right-handed tools. The tools also showed that left-handed people faced the same challenges as right-handed people. Left-handed tools were as well made as right-handed tools, and left-handed users were equally skilled at making and using their tools. 10% minority that has never grown and never shrunk. The left hand that has been left for 10,000 years without changing its share of the population. That's really awesome. It's really cool. My dad's left-handed. So that's like, you know, it's interesting to think that it was always like 10% of the population is left-handed. That is such a weird coincidence and just so consistent, like through the ages. You know what I mean? I don't know how you'd prove like that there were maybe like scientifically prove that. I don't know how you would do that, but you know, like the need or the genetic need for left-handedness, no idea. But how do you explain, scientists, that only 10% of the population consistently for 10,000 years has been left-handed? No more, no less, just around about 10% right there. And you have stone tools made just for left-handers, stone tools made for rights. The righties don't judge lefty, lefty don't judge righty, and they all get along, just like getting along in this next story. How far does your fungi grow? Well, Earth's underground fungal network could stretch 1 billion times further than the distance to the sun. The fungi are cool, and, you know, I'm a fungi myself. But in this article from IFL Science, they're talking about this fungal network from around the world. For the first time, scientists have produced a global map of the planet's underground fungal network, which is so immense that were it stretched out, it would be more than 1 billion times greater than the distance to the sun from the Earth. These subterranean fungal systems, known as obscure mycorrhizal fungal networks, have been known about for some time. They extend for vast distances and provide substances to plants by feeding them nitrogen, phosphorus, and water in exchange for their carbon. In fact, these fungi have a symbiotic trade relationship with about 70% of plant species on Earth. That's a healthy network. That's a healthy social network right there. This later ability also makes them a valuable force for regulating the climate, as they help sequester carbon from the environment. One study found the obscure mycorrhizal fungal networks exchange nearly 4 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent every year, effectively offsetting about 11% of the world's fossil fuel emissions from 2021. In healthy soils, mycorrhizal networks can increase the foraging area of the plant roots by up to 100 times, while offering up to 80% of the plant's phosphorus intake. So that is actually pretty cool. So not only does that mycelial, I think that was the word, mycorrhizal. I don't know. The mycelial network, as it was called in Star Trek, there you go, was so vast, and it's also feeding Here it's feeding symbiotically a nice trade relationship with 70% of the plant species on Earth. So 70% of the plant species are getting some kind of, phosphorus, nitrogen, or water intake from mushrooms. So just seeing how the wider world regulates itself. The plants are trying to regulate and keep everything in this little Goldilocks kind of thing, and seeing how the world symbiotically kind of all works together. Science, baby, figuring it all out. But the mycelial networks, they run deeper than this next story. In 1986, math teachers protested against using calculators, fearing they'd replace thinking. Oh, yeah, that fear was always there. The 1986 calculator riots revealed that concern about automation in education long predated AI. A group of math teachers gathered outside a major mathematics education conference in Washington, D.C. in 1986 to protest the growing use of calculators in schools. Their concern wasn't that calculators existed. It was that the students would become dependent on them before learning basic arithmetic. At the time, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, which sounds like so much more impressive than it probably is, was encouraging schools to incorporate calculators into classrooms, including at younger grade levels. Supporters argued calculators could help students focus on problem solving and more advanced concepts rather than spending time on repetitive calculations. Not everyone agreed. Some teachers feared students would lose essential skills such as mental math, multiplication, and long division. Protesters carried signals with slogans such as "the buttons, nothing till the brain's trained," and warned that introducing calculators too early could harm children's mathematical development. Looking back, nearly 4 decades later, and the debate still surprisingly familiar. Today, many educators are asking similar questions about artificial intelligence. Will AI help students learn more effectively? Will it make them more dependent on technology before mastering foundational skills? The calculator controversy offers an interesting lesson. Calculators ultimately became a standard tool in education, but schools did not abandon arithmetic. Instead, many classrooms adapted by teaching both fundamental skills and calculator use together. That doesn't mean that concerns were pointless. In fact, the central question remains relevant. Whether a new technology enters the classroom, how do we use powerful tools without losing the underlying skills they are meant to support? Which I think that last little paragraph I read was probably the most important in the whole article, outside of the funniness of thinking that calculators are going to destroy the world. I remember my father telling me, "You're not always going to have a calculator." You don't say. But the central question remains whether the new technology entering the classroom is the use of the powerful tool without losing those underlying skills meant to support it. You need to make sure, because AI is different than a calculator. AI can do and show you why 2 + 2 is 4, or 1 × 1 equals not Terrence Howard. So if AI has this ability, it's a little bit different than a calculator, but the core principle there is still the same. We have to find a way to incorporate new technology for the younger generations, as well as teaching these fundamental principles that are needed. The case in point for me would be in the automotive realm. When I went to school at Universal Training Institute, they taught us about carburetors. He even had hey, if you want to try and take one apart, we got one right here. It wasn't required for you to take apart the carburetor, but if you could if you wanted to, because you're not going to see a carburetor unless you work on old cars. There are 0 new cars that are using that old school carburetor on top. So you have a different in education, but the principles of that and why we use that gravity, suction, vacuum systems, and why we use all these different things in cars. You still have to teach the principles. So that's where I would say that the modern education needs to continue to go that way. You need to show technology as well as the reason for why you need these fundamental things. Otherwise, you won't do mental math and you'll have to look at your calculator. Oh, the horror. Like the horror of this next story. Scientists. They promised it. No more meltdowns. None. Well, for the nuclear reactors, scientists just deployed accident-tolerant nuclear fuel in a commercial reactor for the first time in history, making catastrophic meltdown scenarios physically impossible. Scientists and engineers at Westinghouse Electric deployed in-core accidental-tolerant fuel assemblies, incorporating uranium silicate fuel pellets and chromium-coated zirconium cladding in Unit 1 of the Callaway nuclear power plant in Missouri, marking the first commercial reactor deployment of accidental-tolerant fuel technology certified by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The fuel completed its first 18-month operational cycle, generating commercial electricity without measurable performance deviation from standard uranium dioxide fuel assemblies. Conventional nuclear fuel uses uranium dioxide pellets inside zirconium alloy cladding tubes. Under loss of cooling accident conditions, zirconium reacts violently with steam at high temperatures, generating hydrogen gas that can explode. The mechanism that caused hydrogen explosions in the Fukushima Daiichi Oncor's chromium-coated cladding forms a stable oxide layer that prevents steam zirconium reactions at temperatures of 300 degrees Celsius, higher than conventional cladding can withstand, buying critical additional time during any accident scenario for cooling systems to be restored. The uranium silicate fuel pellets also store more uranium per unit volume than standard uranium dioxide, allowing longer operating cycles without refueling and reducing the annual volume to spent fuel requiring permanent disposal. If every operating nuclear power plant globally replaced conventional fuel with the accident-tolerant fuel over the next decade, the safety margin across the entire global nuclear fleet would be dramatically improved without building a single new reactor or changing a single reactor system outside of fuel assemblies. So you don't have to change much in your retrofit, but there's a greater chance that if something would happen, you have a longer time to fix it and make it better than using your regular uranium. Fantastic. Using a different kind of fuel, and this is why you got the where is it here? The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission on it. So that's the impressive part, man. Thinking outside the box to say, hey, well, can we create something that's a little bit safer? And there you go. Meltdown scenarios, a thing of the past. So the only meltdown you'll have to worry about is probably from that person next to you. But what about the meltdown you're going to have from this next story? Warfare has changed, and it always changes as we go on through the years. But I don't think anybody quite saw this coming. Pokemon GO scans quietly trained the navigation tech, now headed into military drones. Oh yeah, your Pokemon GO fetish, that just increased the effectiveness of drones. For years, Hundreds of millions of Pokemon Go players film their streets, parks, buildings around them to earn in-game rewards, never realizing those roughly 30 billion environmental scans would help train navigational technology now headed into military drones. According to reporting by Dutch outlets, Trevo and Volkskrant, the scans are now owned by Nidic Spatial, the technology company spun off when Nidic sold its game business to a Saudi sovereign wealth fund for $3.5 billion in 2025. Those scans were used to train a visual positioning system software that lets machines figure out where it is by matching what its camera sees against a detailed 3D model of the world. Rather than relying on GPS, which is easily jammed in war zones, in December 2025, Nidic Spatial announced a partnership with Vantor, the defense contracting formerly known as Maxar Intelligence, to fuse that ground-level mapping with aerial drone navigation for GPS-denied operations. The catch is consistent. Players agreed to a licensing for a game, often without reading it, not to a weapon program and an ethics note that once its scans are baked into an AI model, it becomes nearly impossible to trace or remove them. Vantor told reporters that it would not use Pokemon Go data, but declined to say whether the system it plans to field was already trained on it. Nidic's route fittingly traced back to Keyhole, a mapping firm back in 2003 by an InQtel, the CIA's venture capital arm. Whew. So the CIA gave your data to the Saudis to map new drone technology. Does it make you feel good? It should. Make you feel as good as going over to PJ&WH.com, where you'll find Mattcast as well as Silly Little Podcast and Lugnuts Podcast. All of our content there. Lugnuts Podcast, Delco or Bust coming to you guys soon. We're working out a place for screenings as well. We got the merch, we got t-shirts, we got cups, we got bags, everything you want. Pop it on there. We also do custom jobs for you as well. So contact us at pjandwh.com and we will get back to you when we see it. Of course, we try to keep everything up to date here for you. I'll let you know if we have any exciting news for you in the future, like any upcoming event dates. This weekend, I believe we have an event out in Oxford. We'll be out there selling all of our merch. I'll pop that on the website as soon as I have that confirmed. And, of course, it ends off the same way every single time, gang. And that's that. I love you, I miss you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, game on and drive on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.
My Matman size cup. Next week, you guys are going to see a couple of these old symbols on here. So we'll get that going. Matman cup coming soon. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so everybody can see the Mattcast. And right above my shoulder, that's going to be the very best Perjangers and Wallhangers video for you. Right above my other shoulder is every single Mattcast in a playlist. And of course, until I see you next time, gang, drive on and game on, boys and girls. Bye-bye.
Bye.